Hello everyone and welcome. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Firebug and today is going to be a fully updated guide of how to Artemis. So in this video, I'm going to consistently show you guys some gameplay in the background, and I'm going to be talking about her abilities, her passive, god aspect, and a build that works best for me. It may help your Artemis experience. So sit back, relax, and maybe grab some snacks because this might be a long video, and enjoy. So first things first, let's talk about her passives. Artemis actually has two passives, but let's start with the first one. Artemis's first passive is Artemis deals 15% increased basic attack damage to gods and 30% to minions that are affected by crowd control. Some things to keep in note: that Artemis doesn't have to be the one doing the crowd control to get the full passive. Her teammates, let's say for example, if you have a support Ymir and he stuns the enemy, Artemis still gets the passive. So you don't have to actually root someone or stun them or slow them. It's just like Artemis doesn't have to do that. Your teammates, if they apply any stunts to the enemy, will also grant her the increased 50% increased basic attack damage to gods and the 30% to minions. The other thing to keep in note, and I know it doesn't say this in game or in the Smite wiki, but after playing Artemis jungle and after playing Artemis quite some time, I can confirm that her passive can still proc on jungle monsters. However, it doesn't proc on jungle bosses, and of course it doesn't apply on structures like towers and phoenixes. Also to keep a note that it doesn't apply on titans as well, since titans, you can't crowd control the Titan. Artemis's second passive, you are able to detect nearby enemy gods in stealth grass. And once you do spot them, it will actually show up, you can actually see them in the grass, and it will actually have an icon above their head. It's going to show as a purple eyeball above their head. All right, now let's go over Artemis's abilities. Artemis's first ability, Transgressor's Fate. Place a trap on the ground. Enemy gods that come in contact with it activate it, rooting, crippling, and repeatedly dealing physical damage over 3 seconds. Some things to keep in note is that I know the game says that you have the max of 4 traps. However, you can actually have up to 5 traps. But as soon as you place the 5th trap, the very first trap that you place down will despawn. However, since it's slowly going to be despawning, it can still be activated. All right, before I talk about her other abilities, let's talk about her god aspect for a second. So Artemis's god aspect of the wild, actually affects Artemis's first ability, Transgressor's Fate. So when you activate Artemis's aspect, now Transgressor's Fate no longer roots or cripples gods, but can now target minions. Triggered traps now also heal Artemis and deal damage to enemies in a larger area. All right, now let's go over her second ability. Artemis's second ability, Vengeful Assault, greatly increase your movement speed and attack speed on activation. You are cleansed of slows and become slow immune for 0.6 seconds. While this buff is active, gain a charge each time you hit the enemy god with a basic attack. After reaching 4 charges, they are consumed and extended the duration of the buff by 3 seconds. Alright, Artemis's third ability, Suppress the Insolence. Fire a volley at a target area, dealing physical damage and slowing enemies. Alright, now Artemis's ultimate ability. Artemis's ultimate is the Caledonian Boar, or aka Tusky. Tusky is just the name of the boar. So summon the Great Caledonian Boar, aka Tusky, that charges the nearest enemy god. Deals physical damage and stuns enemies. The boar is immune until it hits the first god, then continues to charge other gods for its lifetime. You are CC immune for 1.5 seconds after activating this ability. Something to keep in note that the boar will basic attack minions if there are no nearby gods. Alright, let's quickly go over Artemis's basic attacks. So Artemis basic attacks damage scaling might sound confusing to the new players, but let me just read it and break it down for you guys. So damage scaling says it's 100%, and it says strength is a plus 20%, intelligence is a plus 100% basic attack power. Now let me reread it to you the way that it should have been written. So strength is 100% and strength is a plus 20%. Intelligence is just a plus 100 basic attack power. So strength and intelligence are both 100, and strength is going to be a plus 20%. So where does the plus 20% come from? The plus 20% is just from Artemis leveling up from her base stats, and the more items that you have that are strength, she also gets more benefits from her basic attack damage. So after having that knowledge, and if you really think about it, if you go back to some of her abilities, like her first ability, they only do strength. So damage scaling for Transgressor's Fate only has a 30% strength scaling. Second ability doesn't have strength or intelligence, but her third ability also has damage scaling of just strength, and the strength is 65%. For her ultimate, her strength scaling is 90%. And again, there is no intelligence. So that in mind, that will bring us to the builds, since now you have a better understanding that Artemis is just a strength-oriented god. Alright, so I'm going to show up the build on the screen right now. And something that I wanted to point out is, yes, it will say xfahyo. Xfahyo is just my old gamer tag. Unfortunately, in Smite 2, you can't change your name. Hopefully in the future you can. But if you ever wanted to look up my builds, always look up my old gamer tag, xfahyo, and you should be able to find it. So for this build, I put must try Artemis ADC and jungle build. And I'm going to talk about the final build, and then I'm also giving you guys swap if needed. So the swap if needed is just for different scenarios that happen, or if you want to swap this item, if you ever want to swap this item for this item because you think this item will benefit you more, then you can, and it will also work out really well with Artemis. So let's quickly go over the final build. And this build also works with the jungle one. The only thing that you might have to replace for the jungle item is just the star item. So I'm going to go over the star items first, then the final build. Then I'm not going to really go in depth of the swap if needed items. I'm just going to give you different suggestions and different scenarios of why you might want to swap these items. All right, so that all being said, let's get to it. Star item is sharpshooting arrow, or basically the very first star item is gilded arrow. I still believe that this is the best star item for Artemis if you go in for the Artemis ADC, right? And before you just instantly buy it and don't consider looking at these other two options down below, the Leather's Cowl and Deathstool, are still very valid options for Artemis. But in my opinion, if this was a tier list, for the ADC Artemis, Gilded Arrow is just by far the best one to go for Artemis. Because it really pairs up very well with her passive. So again, if you don't remember what her passive does, every time a enemy god is affected by crowd control and Artemis shoots her basics, she gains that 15% to enemy gods. So she gains more basic attack power, right? With Gilded Arrow, that kind of amplifies it too. So Gilded Arrow gives you 10% attack speed, a 20 basic attack power, and it also has a passive every 10 seconds. The highest, healthiest enemy minion or jungle monster within 12.8 meters. If you are landing the killing blow, you actually gain the additional +3 gold bonus and a 15% attack speed for 8 seconds. And this also gives you 30% of your mana. Well, it says a +30 mana. So why is that so important? Because one, it scales off really well with their passive, but two, if you really think about it, if you're clearing wave or even in the very beginning of the game, what are you going to most likely attack? It's going to be your purple camp if you're going for Artemis ADC, right? And the purple camp, most likely it's going to have a mark on it, and if you kill it, if you get the last hit, you actually gain the plus gold. And why is plus gold really important? Because the more gold you have, the faster you're gonna have to build your other items faster than the enemy ADC. So let's say, for example, the other enemy ADC was going for a death tool, right? Compared to you that is going for the Gilded Arrow, you're gonna get the more gold. And on top of it, after that, the cooldown's only every 10 seconds, so it's gonna probably take you a couple seconds to go from your purple camp to the minion wave that spawns, and usually it's gonna mark another minion. And once you get the additional kill, then you gain additional more gold. So you kind of see the idea, right? Also, if the enemy team is affected by any crowd control, she's benefiting not only from the 15% of basic attack power, but she's also benefiting the additional 20 basic attack power. And when she does kill the healthiest minion or jungle monster, she's also gaining the 15% attack speed. And attack speed's really important, especially in early game, because not only that she's gaining 15% attack speed for 8 seconds, but she's also gaining it from the Gilded Arrow base stat alone. And if you really think about it, around that time, you're gonna have most likely your second ability that will also grant her more attack speed. So you kind of see how things are kind of like go hand in hand with her kit, right? And the more attack speed you have in early game, the faster you're going to clear those waves, giving you a boost to out-clear the enemy team. And if you can out-clear the enemy team, then you have a better chance to steal their camps off to the sides, right? Usually the side camps of not their purple buff, but the one camp that spawns in the middle, and the camp that spawns on their left side or right side, depending on which if you're chaos or if you're on the order side. But you get what I'm saying. So Gilded Arrow really works well if you're going for more Artemis ADC. And then what makes this item really good is when you hit level 20, you get to upgrade it to Sharpshooting Arrow. So Sharpshooting Arrow now grants you 40 basic attack power, plus 15 attack speed, and a 15 critical strike chance. And the passive changes. So now the passive says a +5 gold gain from kills and assists. So every time you kill someone or get the assist, you're going to get more gold. Why is that really important, especially at late game? Because the more gold you get, the faster you can build the 3K pot. And that will benefit you a lot more, because the 3K part, the one that you want, is the elixir of strength. And once consumed, you gain a plus 50 strength, and it's a permanent buff, and it can be stacked. So if you can consistently get the gold fairy, if you can consistently keep ranking on those kills or even the assist at the late game, then you have a higher chance to get more strength, giving you guys a better chance of winning the game. So that's why I put Gilded Arrow and Sharpshooting Arrow here. Also, it's something to keep in mind that Sharpshooting Arrow also grants her additional plus 10 attack damage against enemies that are over 7.5 meters away. So if you really think about it, in Smite, they're usually in team fights. Artemis is usually in the background, right? Usually in the furthest away from enemies in general. So you gain the plus 10 basic attacks, and you're gonna get a plus 40. So 10 plus 40, that is 50. And if they are affected by crowd control, that's a plus 15. So again, 40 plus 10 plus 15, that is a 65 basic attack power boost. And on top of it, it can crit. So you're gonna hit very hard with Artemis if they are affected by crowd control, and if you're the furthest away from them. So you're gonna get the full benefit from this item. All right, if you're going for Artemis jungle, I only highly recommend going for Boomba's dagger. Boomba's hammer does work on her if you're going for more ability based, but Boomba's dagger, I feel like it just works a lot better with her. And I believe that, in my opinion, after playing Artemis quite some time, that Artemis does benefit more if you're going for more basic attack oriented than, let's say, going for more ability based Artemis. I'm not saying ability based Artemis doesn't work, but in my opinion, after quite some time, basic attack Artemis just works a little bit better. So that's why I put Boomba's golden dagger here, and that would be upgraded to the Boomba spear, which will grant you a lot more benefits later in the game, in the jungle Artemis role, right? So that's just my opinion, but if you want to go more ability based, then I recommend going for a Boomba's hammer. All right, now let's go over her other star items that I put down as swap as needed. So I'm going to quickly just kind of go over it, right? So Leather's Cowl is great if you have teammates that will benefit more attack speed. So in the very beginning, right, you only get a benefit with the 8.8 meters of an allied god, and you will get a plus 15 attack speed. And let's say like you're alone, and then let's say like your support dies, or let's say like your support rotates, then she's gonna get then the Leather's Cowl says if you are alone, you get a plus 5 movement speed. So again, more movement speed, the better for Artemis, because if you really think about it, Artemis doesn't have a dash, so anything that grants her more movement speed will really benefit her a lot more. Because if you really think about it, the only thing that she gets from getting away from enemies or trying to chase down enemies is her second ability. And then from Leather's Cowl, it will be upgraded to a Huntress Cowl. That will give you 45 strength, 5% lifesteal, and then the passive says within 8.8 meters of an allied god, you get a plus 30 attack speed and a plus 5 lifesteal. And this buff is now shared with allies within 8.8 meters. And if she is alone, let's say like it's like your whole team dies and you're completely alone, now you get a plus 10 movement speed. All right, so why would you want to build this item than Gilded Arrow? For a different scenario, if you have a bunch of teammates that benefit with attack speed, then you might want to consider getting Hunter's Cowl. So for example, let's say like you have a Bologna solo and you have a Nuwa going aspect and she benefits with attack speed, and you got a support Neith for some reason, and all those gods. So if majority of your team does go with more attack speed oriented, then maybe you want to consider going for a Hunter's Cowl, since later in the game they're all going to have more benefits of gaining that 30% attack speed and a +5 lifesteal, and this item would grant you guys a better chance to fight against objectives, because now, since you guys are all grouped up most of the time, getting the Fire Giant, Gold Fairy, or even Pyro, you're most likely going to have a better chance of securing the kill, since all you guys are getting that benefit of the additional attack speed. So that's something to keep in mind. It's just a different scenario, but again, Gilded Arrow or Sharpshooting Arrow still is a valid option for her. But if you have a bunch of teammates that benefit with attack speed and you know that, then maybe you might want to consider getting a Leather's Cowl. Alright, next up is Death Tool. So why would you want to build Death Tool in the very beginning? So for some matches, after playing Artemis for quite some time, you're going to be bound to have these matches that are going to be a counter pick for Artemis. So a good counter pick for Artemis, in my opinion, is Hui. Hui really does counter Artemis pretty hard, right? In my opinion, because there's a couple of things that he can do. One, he can ricochet his arrow to keep distance from her, and he can jump over her traps, and the leap alone can really fuck her over, because not only that he can jump over traps, but he can close the distance to Artemis, and having it a harder chance to for her to get away, especially if you can just leap and then stun her. Then she can be in a really bad spot. Another bad spot for her is her ultimate, since again Artemis doesn't really have a dash and she relies on it too. He can utilize the ultimate stunner inside his ult and it give her a really bad time. But there is some matches that Artemis does benefit from, like a Cupid. So if you're an Artemis player and you're playing against a Cupid, you might have a better edge of fighting the Cupid, because the good benefit that Artemis does have is, let's say Cupid does ult and his ult is considered as a slow. You could just pop your second ability, become slow immune, and literally get out of his ultimate. So that's why I say like some certain matches that just works really well with her. But if you are certain that it's going to be a hard match and you might want to get more sustained, then maybe consider getting Death Toll, because Death Toll gives you 15 strength and 100 max health. The extra 100 max health would just give you the additional like sustainability to fight against a Healy, right? But that's just an example. There's other gods that really especially in early game, and I believe Artemis is not an early game kind of god, goddess. So she kind of struggles in the early game. So if you already have another example is Rama. Rama can be really strong against Artemis, because he can out clear her very fast. And he can close the distance and slow her. That's why I'll probably put Death Tool here and swap it out for Death Tool, just to get that extra health, and just so you have more sustainability. And plus, every time you attack or basic attack the minions or even the gods, then you actually get some lifesteal out of it. And you get your mana restored as well. Alright, now let's go over the actual build. So the actual build, Sharpshooting Arrow, and then going for Devourer's Gauntlet. Why is Devourer's Gauntlet really good right now? Devourer's Gauntlet, the reason why I placed it here is because it works very well with Artemis Jungle and Artemis ADC. Now, it's something to keep a note during the time of this recording is that I am fully aware of the new item. I think it's called Ripper's Claw or Ripper's Talent. Yeah, it's called Rip Talon. So the Rip Talon is going to give you a more attack speed and lifesteal, but in my opinion, I feel like Devourer's Gauntlet will still be viable and it'd be really beneficial, because what makes Devourer's Gauntlet such a good lifesteal item right now is just because of the passive. Because if you get up to 75 stacks or max stacks, right, you can actually continue stacking, but it'll just continue, but it will actually take longer to continue to stack. But you can actually, since you can continue stacking for the rest of the match, you're gonna eventually just keep on growing on the strength and lifesteal over time. Because if you really think about it, you're gonna consistently defend your Titan, defend the Phoenix, or defend the towers, right? So you're consistently killing minions anyways without even thinking about it. So that's why I put Devourer's Gauntlet here for now. But if you want to watch me utilize Artemis with the new item once the new patch does come out, then I'll make an updated version for my thoughts on the Rip Talon for a future video. So if you don't want to miss out that future video, please consider hitting that subscribe button so you can get notified when that video comes out. All right, next item is Dagger of Frenzy. Dagger of Frenzy with Artemis works very well because it pairs up with her second ability. Dagger of Frenzy is an active item, and every time you activate it, you gain a +10, +3 per level attack damage. +3 per level just means it's a, so every time you level up, so at level 1, it's just a +3. At level 2, it's a +3, so it's a +6. And then at level 3, it's going to be a +9, and so forth and so forth. You get the idea. So every time you level up, it's just going to be additional +3. But it's only when you activate the item, right? So you get a +10 and a +3, so a total of 13. But if you level up, it's going to be additional +3, +3, +3 of attack damage. That's why it's very good. On top of it, you instantly get a 50% attack speed, and the buff lasts up to 6 attacks, right? And the cooldown's only 15. And additional, if you get a kill, so if you're killing a god, it refreshes the cooldown. So what I usually do, and this is just a tip, is that once I buy Dagger of Frenzy, I instantly pop it at the fountain, and then I have the 6 stacks, right? 6 of the very first basic attacks. And then once I get to my lane, the item's already on or is already done with cooldown. So when I get to my lane, I already have the 6 stacks, and then I start basic attacking 6 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then at the end of the 6th one, then I can just pop it again, and then I get additional +6. So technically, if you play it well, you can actually have up to 12 basic attack bonus damage, and you get the additional 15% attack speed. This works very well with, again, ADC Artemis and Jungle Artemis to help you have a better chance to secure or even steal ejectives with this item as well. So that's why I placed it here. If you want to swap this item, if you're fighting against let's say a Nuwa or even a Danzo, you might not want to build Dagger of Frenzy, and you might want to consider getting Odysseus Bow. Odysseus Bow would be a valid option for your second item slot, just because Odysseus Bow is really good against Danzo. So if you're fighting against a Danzo, and there's going to be a lot of Danzos, get Odysseus Bow. Odysseus Bow will help shred his clones, especially if the Danzo's going with aspect, right? And he's just going to have like a shit ton of clones. Then you might want to consider getting Odysseus Bow than the Dagger of Frenzy. Just because Odysseus Bow has a passive saying every fourth attack, it triggers a chain lightning, and the chain lightning will do damage, physical damage, and it can hit up to 4 nearby enemies, and it has a bounce range of 4.8 meters and can hit the same target more than once. It's every fourth basic attack. So 1, 2, 3, 4, chain lightning. 1, 2, 3, 4, chain lightning. 1, 2, 3, 4, chain lightning. And this also pairs up really well with her second ability as well, right? So just something to keep in mind. All right, next up is Hasten Vitalis. Now you can swap this item with majority of any other item, but after playing Artemis for quite some time, I find myself having more benefits for her to have Hasten Vitalis just because of the passive. So the passive for Hasten Vitalis is attacks hit a god. It will take away 12.5 attack movement penalty. So if you don't know what an attack movement penalty in Smite 2 or even in Smite 1, if you're not attacking, your god can move up, down, left, right pretty freely, right? But as soon as you do a basic attack or even throw your ability, then your character is going to be in an attack stance. And once you're in the attack stance, you're going to move a lot slower. So why is that important with Artemis or with most hunters in general? In my opinion, yes, you're not going to get the full benefit with damage, but if you have a Hasten Vitalis, you have a more likely chance to outbox the other hunter. So let's say, like, for example, if you're fighting against a Hui, now if you build Hasten Vitalis, you might have a better chance to juke his arrows, or especially the arrow that he can ricochet off the walls, right? You have a better chance to juke him and outbox him because of Hasten Vitalis. On top of it, Hasten Vitalis does pair up with her second ability again. Since her second ability, once active, she instantly gets that 25 movement speed at all levels, right? So that's why I feel like Hasten Vitalis does work very well with her. And if let's say like the enemy gets really low and they start panicking and they start trying to get away by dashing away or even jumping away, if you can hit consistently with your second ability active, and if you can just hit one basic attack, you will proc the Hasten Vitalis, granting you the attack movement speed penalty, right? Or the takeaway attack movement speed penalty, so you can actually move faster, and you can have a better chance of catching up with them with your basic attacks. So that's why it's really good with Artemis, so you can have a better chance of boxing someone, and you have a better chance of catching up to the enemy if they try dashing away. But if you're really good at throwing your basics, then you can really have a better chance of catching up with them. And on top of it, you can use your third ability that slows them by 25%. So the idea of like chasing down an enemy is like you want to like try slowing them first, then activate your second ability to get that movement speed to close the distance, and then start basic attacking so you can pock off the Hasten Vitalis so you can chase them down. And especially this item would be really useful for Artemis, just because especially if you are playing Artemis jungle, and just because you could chase down enemies. So another good example is, say like you're playing jungle Artemis and you're fighting against like a Aladdin or a Susanoo, and then because like Aladdin and Susanoo, they both basically have 2 dashes, right? But if you get Hasten Vitalis, you might have a better chance of chasing them down. So just different scenarios, right? Another good option if you want to swap this item out is Musashi's Dew Swords, right? Musashi's Dew Swords gives you 35 strength and 30 crit chance, and every time you crit strike, it gives you the plus 15 movement speed for 5 seconds. So why is this item good, or why would you want to swap this out with Haste of Fatalis? Because if you really think about it, if you get more crits, right, the more crits you have, the more chance you're gonna proc the 15% movement speed for 5 seconds. It doesn't increase the duration. However, you can just keep refreshing the duration, and 5 seconds is pretty good. So you have 5 seconds, and you can like consistently shoot, or you can even crit the minion wave. You can crit the jungle monsters. You can crit basically any other enemy type in the game. So you most likely have a better chance to get the additional 50% movement speed. So more movement speed, with paired that up with your second ability with more movement speed of the 25 movement speed from your second ability and a plus 15 with Madashi's Dew Swords. But it's just a different option if you want to try that out. But again, in my opinion, you can also swap this out if you want to do more damage. You can swap this out with a Tear Fiend. Tear Fiend works really well with hunters in general. Another valuable option is the Bargy's Harp. Bargy's Harp will benefit you a lot more if you're playing Artemis and you want to do more structure damage, right? So if you're more of a player that likes to backdoor or split push, then maybe you want to consider getting Bargy's Harp, just because you can actually do bonus damage to structures and bosses, right? So both options very good. Another swappable item is the Larian's Bow, and that one's also an active item. So once you activate it will on use fire 3 arrows that pierce enemies in a 10.5 meters in a line, and it will deal 50% of your attack damage as a physical damage, and it will have a take away 50 shield and can critically strike and can go pass through walls. So you can utilize that if you are fighting against like a Geb, for example, and they have a lot of shields, then yeah, you can utilize this item more than, let's say, a Haste of Fatalis. All right, next item is the Executioner. Executioner is just here because it's really good on hunters in general. It gives you the 15% attack speed. Has the adaptable stat of a plus 30 or a plus 55 intelligence based on your highest stat. For Artemis' sake, she only grants the plus 30 strength. But what makes this item really good is because it's going to be really easy for Artemis to apply all the stacks of piercing. So piercing reduces 6% of protections for 4 seconds, and you can stack this. You can stack it up to 5 times. So 6 times 5 is 30% protection shred. And not only that this affects gods, but this also affects bosses, so jungle bosses. If you really think about it, if you have Executioner and the enemy team doesn't, let's say like the enemy carry doesn't have it, and your team's getting the objective and the enemy team's getting the objective at the same time, or let's say like they're trying to steal it, you're most likely going to have a higher chance of getting the kill for, let's say, for example, the fire giant. Let's say that both teams are trying to attack the fire giant and the enemy carry is trying to steal it, but since you have Executioner and you're reducing its protections, you're gonna most likely have a higher chance of getting the fire giant compared to the other carry that doesn't have Executioner. So it's just a solid item, protection shred. Especially right now, protection shred and health shred is very good in the meta, and I don't think it's going to change too much when the update does happen. But what makes it really good right now for protection shred and health shred is just because most of the new items, like let's say the Singrish Lash, I don't know how to pronounce it, but Singrish Lash, right? You see this item paired up with the Mystical Mail, and Mystical Mail grants them 25 protection and 300 max health. So most of these items have a lot of health in it. So another good example that you might see people build, and not a lot of people build this, is the Heartwood Charm, and that grants them 400 max health. Another one is Regrowth Strider, just because it has a 35 physical protection and it heals them. So you want to find items that are more protection shred, like protection and health shred. So that will bring up our next item, Quinn's Blade. Quinn's Blade is just here just because of it gives you a attack hit bonus plus bonus physical damage to gods that have more max health than you, and the bonus damage is equal to 10% of the difference of max health. And this is just a solid item. Again, more health shred, especially if they're building a Leviathan's hide, right? Every time they get more stacks, they're gonna get more max health. So Quinn's Blade would really shred them down. Another item that you might see a lot of Guardians go is Gauntlet of Thieves, and that also gives them more max health. So that's why I placed it here, the Quinn's Blade, because again, solo laners and tanks are kind of strong in this meta, and I'm assuming next meta is going to be a little bit the same, because yes, they did nerf Singrish Lash just a little bit, but I still feel like a lot of people are still gonna build it, right? Especially in solo laners, and especially Mordreds. Oh my god, there's so many Mordreds now, it's kind of stupid. But Quinn's Blade, again, just shreds health. And then last I put down is Titan's Bane. Titan's Bane is one of the best penetration items in the game. Titan's Bane and Obsidian Shard are the both best penetration items in the game. So that's why I just placed it here. It's just without a doubt. Titan's Bane gives you 50 strength and it gains the Shattering Effect. What does the Shattering Effect do? Shattering Effect grants you a 35 penetration, but it does not stack on itself. However, I know it doesn't say this, but all it takes is one basic attack and you instantly grant them the Shattering Effect. I don't know how long the duration is that applies to the enemy, but I do assume that it will just be on them for quite some time. Not quite some time, like probably like 3 seconds to 5 seconds long. For a hunter that has majority of attack speed and it has a second ability that grants her more attack speed, you can kind of see that you can just benefit with items like this that just have strength in it. If you really think about it, Artemis doesn't really need all of her items attack speed. You can actually benefit with items that just have strength in it. So for a good example is Crusher. Crusher works really well with her, especially with the aspect, because Crusher, it says abilities hit gives you a plus physical damage. Damage is equal to 35 of your strength. So the more strength you have, the more damage Crusher is going to proc off of it, and the damage is dealt over 1 second. Subsequent hits on the same target deal 50% bonus damage for 3 seconds. So again, this works really well with her aspect and without the aspect, but I feel like you have more success having the aspect turned on, because you can affect this you can affect Crusher to help you clear wave faster or clear jungle monsters or whatever with the aspect. So that's why Crusher is a good solid option for Artemis. If you're looking for more, like, again, this is going to be more ability based oriented, even though she doesn't really have to have a lot of attack speed in her kit. But in my opinion, the Defiant build just works really well. Crit isn't super strong. It might change later, but crit isn't super strong. But I do have some crit options for you guys here. But let's quickly go over Heartseeker. Heartseeker is just here for, if you again going for more ability base, and that could be swapped off to the Quinn's Blade. So if you don't want Quinn's Blade and you go more ability base, get Heartseeker. Heartseeker actually is slightly stronger than Quinn's Blade in my opinion, just because the ability hit is a +% health physical damage, and the damage is equal to 2.5 of your strength. So again, more strength, the more health shred of max health you actually do. So in my opinion, Heartseeker would be slightly stronger than Quinn's Blade, but Quinn's Blade's here is because, in my opinion, Artemis is more, in my opinion, more as a basic attack oriented god because of her passive. So if you're going more attack speed or basic attack, Artemis, Quinn's Blade. If you're going for more ability based, Heartseeker. But both are very valid options. Another swappable item, this only applies for jungle Artemis, right, that has Boom Golden Dagger as the starter item, is Avenging Blade. You can swap this out with probably a Dagger of Frenzy or even Pace of Vitalis. But Avenging Blade, the reason why I placed this here, because I remember there was a matchup that I was struggling to fight against this Nemesis, and she kept dashing away because Nemesis has 2 dashes, right? But I remembered having Avenging Blade, and once I bought it, I can turn, and I basically won the match because I bought this item. So what does this item do? It gives you 60 strength, 200 max health, and attacks hit a god while in the jungle, debuff the god. And this will give him a takeaway 5 movement speed and a takeaway 5 protections. Debuff lasts for 3 seconds and can stack up to 3 times. So takeaway 5 movement speed, so 3 times 5, you can have up to 15 takeaway movement speed, and they also have a takeaway 15 protections. Why is this item so good with Artemis? Because if you go back to her third ability again, her third ability has a slow up to 25%, so 25 plus the 5, that is 30, just 30 right off the bat, just by hitting her third ability and really slowing down the enemy, right? Or enemy junglers. So if you're fighting against like Aladdin, Susanoo, Nemesis, gods that have dashes, then you might consider, as an Artemis jungler, you might consider trying and get Avenging Blade to really turn the tables. It doesn't really affect gods like Humbats or Fenrir because they have leaps, and you can't really basic attack people if they're leaping, right? But in a dash, you could still have a chance to basic attack them. So yeah, once I had this item, I actually turned the tides, well, basically turned the tables, and actually won, and actually fought against the Nemesis that was dashing because I kept consistently slowing her. So it's just something to keep in mind if you really are struggling against fighting the enemy jungler as Artemis jungle, then why not try this out? All right, now let's talk about crit. So why is crit isn't super strong right now? Yes, I know that sharpshooting arrow does also have a crit chance, but crit isn't super strong right now because of the recent changes. Well, not super recent, but they did change spectral armor, and spectral armor is a item that some solo laners or even guardians can build to counteract crit, right? And you might see this why a lot of other YouTubers or other Twitch streamers or other content creators don't really build a lot of crit is because of the counter the counter of crit is spectral armor. So spectral armor gives them 30 physical protections, 400 max health, and enemies within 8.8 meters have a takeaway 25 attack speed and deal 25 less damage with critical strikes. So that can be a really good counter for crit chance. But when would you want to build crit? If there's a scenario, for a different scenario, is always look up what the enemy matchup is. So if the enemy matchup is a bunch of squishies, so for example a Baron support and a Nubis going solo lane, right, from the enemy team, and either or are going with more defense or protections, then you might want to consider gaining crit. Crit's good against squishy gods. Not so much on tanks or solo laners, especially if they have a lot of health, right? But you can also say, well, if they have a lot of health and protections, then you might want to utilize these items, the last three, the Executioner, Quin's Blade, and Titan's Blade with crit. But the thing with crit, in my example, is crit's only very reliable if you have more than just one crit item. 2 crit items is solid, but if you have 3 crit items, the better, or even more crits, the better, right? But you only have like 6 slots besides the star item. Star item isn't considered as a crit, but you can. The only item that I can really think of is Sharpshooting Arrow that has crit as a star item, but that's it. But again, you only have 6 slots, and you want to have something that you want to sustain yourself, so you can sustain yourself to outbox others. And if you go for all crit, yes, it does work on Artemis very well, but you're losing out lifesteal, and you're losing out with some penetration items, especially right now that there's a lot of items that have a lot more health and a lot of protection. So this is why the final build's this way, not like, oh, here's range on the final build, and here's Masashi's dual swords, here's Demon Blade, here's Deathbringer, right? These are all crit items, and it worked really well with Artemis, but it doesn't fit the builds, right? If there is more slots on the right here, then yeah, that's good for crit, protections, health, all that. But since you only have 6 slots, then that's why it doesn't really fit. And on top of it, once someone does build spectral armor, you kind of fuck yourself, because spectral armor is a hard counter. And on top of it, if they have a lot more health than you, and you don't have any health shred, yes, crit will do a lot of damage, but it's not going to be enough to kill them, because they can just have a bunch of health and kind of just take the hits. So those are just the reasons why crit isn't super strong right now. But if you are fighting against a lot of squishies, and let's say like the team matchup, the enemy team matchup is like a Baron's support, and he's not building protections, and the solo laner is going with like Anubis. I mean, there's different options, right? Like a Aphrodite going support, but she's not going protections, and the other example is Hades, and he's not going as a solo laner or having any protections. Like, those are just different scenarios, right? And if the scenario works in the favor of having like that, like if you can just get rid of Executioner, Quin's Blade, and Titan's Bane, because you won't need these items if they don't have any protections. So then that's why you can swap these items for more crit items. That's the scenario. But if you are going to go for crit, always get range, especially when they updated it from, especially my older video, right, how to Artemis. They did change it, so this actually gives you the highest crit chance in the game. So it gives you 30 strength, 20% crit chance, and every time you kill a god or assist, it gives you additional for critical strike chance, the max of 20%. And after that, after 5 god kills or assists, you get the additional 10 critical strike chance. So if you do the math, 20 plus 20 plus additional 10, that's a 50 critical strike chance with this item alone. That's why this item would be really good against squishies, especially if you have 50%. And on top of it, you compare this really well with Madashi's Dual Swords. Again, get that movement speed. And then if you want more attack speed, get Demon Blade. Every time you get a critical strike, you get a plus 30 attack speed. And again, if you're going for all crit, you have to get a Deathbringer, right, in your build. So Deathbringer will give you a plus 35 critical strike damage. So every time you do a critical strike chance, right, it will still do the bonus damage, but now Deathbringer will do additional 35 critical strike damage. Last item is the Virtual Amplifier. Why did I place it here? So if you are just really struggling, if you're falling behind, you watch this video, built the same way, and you just lost, and you just like, man, I went 0 and 6 because of this guy. Fuck this xfahyo, or fuck this firebug guy, because I just watched this video and he said to build this and I tried it and I failed, right? First of all, calm down. Second, right, I'm not saying this is the best build in all time. This is why it's swap if needed items here. So to clarify, if you're falling behind, it's like you died like 2 to 3 times against the Huey, it's just having a hard time, and that's just an example, right? And even if you did build Death Tool but it wasn't enough, then you might want to try to play it more safely, right? And you want to play it more safely, so you might want to stay under tower, try to farm as much as you can, avoid team fights, avoid anything, just do your own thing, trying to farm up to keep up, right? Even if Huey is going to mid, you just call it out, hey, enemy missing left, and then you just want to keep pushing your lane, even though the Huey's in mid and your team is like, hey, you rock cancel that, because, and then they start pinging you, they're like, hey, Huey's in mid, why did you rotate? You get the idea. But for higher level plays, like in ranked, right, people understand why you're not in mid lane, right? Like, and I get it, you get teammates like that, and it's gonna be really hard for you. But if you consistently keep trying, and let's say that the Huey does come back, and you keep pushing up your lane, and you just farm a little bit more, you have a better chance of actually winning against the Huey since you farmed up, right? Virtual Amplifier, let's say that for a different scenario, the Huey never leaves his lane and you're just tower sitting whatsoever, you might want to consider getting a Virtual Amplifier. Virtual Amplifier will grant you 200 max health, a 3+3 health regen, and a 10% attack speed. And it has an adaptable stat of a plus 30 strength or a 45 intelligence based on your highest item stat. And the passive says heal you if every time you heal yourself or an ally god with an ability, you gain a plus 10 attack speed and a plus 5 attack damage. Buff lasts to 6 seconds and it can stack up to 3 times. So every time you get a stack, so first stack is just a 10% attack speed and a plus 5 attack damage, but 3 times 10 would be 30 attack speed, and 3 times 5 would be 15 bonus attack damage. So why would this be viable, especially if you're losing a lot, whatever? Because you're going to consistently out heal the other jungler, or I mean not other jungler, the other carry, and this gives you a chance to, since you're out sustaining him, this will give you a chance to outbox him since you have a lot more health than him, and again, you're consistently healing. But this item only applies if you're going with Artemis Aspect, because Artemis Aspect is your first ability, and it will, with the aspect on, she can heal, right? So with Virtual amplifier, since she's healing herself with 3 traps, you can get the additional attack speed and more damage. So you can have a better chance to outbox someone. And once you do that with this tool and this item, then you have a better chance of outboxing him, forcing him to retreat or forcing him to call out for his junglers to help babysit him, or whatever the case may be, right? For the different scenario. But if you're falling behind and you don't know what other items to build, try out Virtual Amplifier if you are going with Artemis aspect. But this only affects you if you're playing Artemis ADC as well. Do not build this item on Artemis jungle. It doesn't work as well whatsoever. But again, if you're falling behind with Artemis ADC, it's sometimes those are just going to be the matches. Sometimes you're not all matches, you're just going to pop off. That's just reality, right? There's not just build this and get a pentakill. That's not how Smite works. Sometimes you're gonna just get outmatched. Sometimes you're gonna get consistently getting ganked by the enemy team. Sometimes it just happens, right? Like you can't predict what the enemy team's gonna always do. So if you are gonna fall behind, just stay calm, do your thing, keep farming, just keep pushing your lane the best you can. Avoid team fights. Even if let's say like the enemy carry does go to mid, just call out, hey, be careful mid, because that's all you can do. You're not, if you're falling behind, do not keep fighting, because it's just gonna be worse than you. And it said like you did rotate to mid with the enemy carry that's also in mid, you're gonna still fall behind, because now you're sharing XP and gold with the other teammates that are there, right? Yes, you might have a chance to kill someone, but most likely you're gonna die as well, or they're gonna focus you out since you're couples levels behind. If they're a smart enemy team and they see that you're falling behind, they're gonna consistently attack you. So that's why Virtual Amplifier could be a solid option for her. All right, that all being said, let's go with the relics. So a couple relics that I got for Artemis. For the final build, I usually go with the Angelic relic, and this just works with Artemis jungle and Artemis ADC. I really like this item because, one, new players already know what this item does, because for new players, when they play against bots, this is the only relic that they have, so it's really good. On top of it, it works really well with Artemis because, again, she doesn't have that movement speed, whatever, so having the relic that's on 10-second cooldowns really helps her out. And on top of it, what makes this relic really good for her is the range. For ranged gods like Artemis, they get a 40% attack projectile speed. So if it just makes it easier for you to hit your basic attacks a lot easier with this relic. And on top of it, you don't have to activate it to get that benefit. So it's just really good, in my opinion. And the amount of times this have saved my life. However, if you are a new player, and I highly recommend getting beats. For new players in general, just get beats, especially if you're transitioning from going from attacking from bots to a more PvP, right? So if you're going from PvE to PvP now, and you player versus player, most likely you're gonna get caught up. And if you don't know how to juke very well, especially with Artemis, right? She doesn't have a dash or whatever. Then I highly recommend getting beats. Beats is like really good with Artemis because she doesn't have a dash or anything. She can really get caught up with a lot of scenarios, right? If Artemis gets stunned or CC or slowed or whatever, you're gonna most likely die, because that's just how she is. Artemis is more for like if you're really good at positioning, you got to be a really good Artemis player. Positioning is key with her. But if you're not that good, if you don't know when to position or where you should be standing in team fights, or if it's like you over push someone and they caught you out, Beads is going to be your best friend. Beads is going to be your best friend. Yes, you can utilize this item and try to like juke some abilities and juke some things, right? But that's only for if you already have knowledge of how to juke really properly. Let's say, like, for example, if you don't have to rely on beads, if you're really good at like keeping a distance from Ares, especially when if you know that he's about to ult, if you're really good at keeping your distance, like for stuff like that, or keeping your distance to move out of the way from the Poseidon's whirlpool, right? Another example is Cabrakan. Cabrakan can really fuck over Artemis, but if you really are good at juking enemies' attacks, then maybe you don't have to rely on beads. But if for new players or for non-experienced Artemis players, for the Artemis players they just got Artemis and they don't really have a lot of time playing her or have more experience with her, just get beads. That's like the best way to explain it. But if you're more for that little bit more experienced Artemis players and you kind of have a feel of when to engage, when to disengage, all that, and have some kind of knowledge, then I highly recommend getting the agility relic. But if you're more as like a really good Artemis player, and this also works with Artemis jungle, this relic right here, well, I mean all three of them do, but this one Blink works really well with Artemis jungle or just Artemis ADC as in general. Blink would be a really good good option for you for the Artemis player if you really are like a decent player. So this is more for like players that play rank a lot. This is more for like players that have lots of time on Artemis and know when to engage, when to not engage. Then you might want to consider getting Blink, right? Blink with Artemis works really well because she can blink in, ult, and actually get some kills, right? Especially Artemis jungle. Artemis jungle, you can just hide like in the grass or behind the wall, and then you can blink in and hopefully get a kill. So Blink is more for those experienced ones. Why? Because if you're a new player, don't really have a whole lot of time playing Artemis, you blink in, you're like, yeah, I can blink in and ult. So you blink in and ult, but the enemy team just kind of like looks around, like turns around, like all five of them just kind of turn around and kill you. Because yes, Blink can be really good aggressively, and you can get away with a lot of things with Blink. But if you put yourself in a scenario like that, you blink in, you're gonna be really out positioned to the point that the enemy team can easily just turn around and kill you. And that could be a really bad scenario, especially when Blink has a long cooldown, right? So cooldown for Blink is 140 seconds. But if you damage or kill a god within 4 seconds on use, it will be a takeaway 30 cooldown. All right, that is basically it. If it works really well with you, just let me know in the comments down below, because I would love to read it. There's items that I missed that I didn't cover in my build, and you think it works really well with her, just let me know in the comments down below. But hopefully I explained everything best I can. The reason why is you want to probably swap this item, blah 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 blah, right? Because again, every match is going to be different, so every match is going to have different gods that you're going to fight against. Artemis is not just one pick pony, right? You're gonna gods that really fuck her over is probably like Fenrir. Fenrir is a really hard counter because he can jump over, he can leave, close the distance, slow her down, stun her. Cabrakan is a really Cabrakan can be a good counter against Artemis as well. So just something to keep in mind. But good matches that you want to have is probably like a Danzo. Artemis does do pretty well against Danzo, surprisingly enough, because you can just pop your in my opinion, you just use the aspect, keep consistently using your one with the aspect, and you can shred his clones pretty well. And you have Odysseus bow to really hard corner him. Again, Cupid, right? Artemis is really good against Cupid because every time he ults, you can just pop your second ability and just have that passive on your second ability to be slow immune, and you just walk out of his ultimate. So just stuff like that really benefit her, right? So anything that has a slow in it, Artemis is really good against it because of her second ability. But you kind of get the idea. Every matchup's going to be different. So every matchup requires maybe a different item. So that's why it's a swap if needed. But majority of my matches about my final build works pretty well for me. And again, that's why I said it may help you as well. And if you need to swap any of these items, if you're like, okay, I'm fighting against a nemesis in the jungle, and he also Firebug also had a struggle against her, try the Avenging Blade and see how that works out. So again, different scenarios, different builds requirements, right? You just always look up who you are fighting against, right? And on top of it, if on top of it, you also have to think right in the very beginning, why are you picking Artemis, right? If you're gonna pick Artemis, especially in let's say like in ranked, right, you always want to think of, okay, when would be a good appropriate time to pick Artemis, right? If my whole team is a bunch of like gods that have a lot of CC or even attack speed, then maybe consider getting Artemis, because every time your whole team has CC in their kit, you're gonna get the additional passive bonus, right, just for free with your basic attacks, right? Because again, her first passive, Artemis deals 15% increased basic attack damage to gods and minions that are affected by crowd control. So for example, a really good reason why you want to pick Artemis for a good matchup is Athena works really well with her. Sobek, if someone's playing Sobek, pick Artemis, you're gonna win. Another good matchup is Ares is pretty good. Cerberus, right? If you have an Anubis in your team, he gets his wraps up pretty fast. Cabrakan and Artemis work really well together. Bacchus works really well with Artemis. Fenrir works super well with Artemis, right? Because he can ult someone and drag them towards her, and you can place a trap down. Or if you have the aspect, you can also just like ult them as well, so it's double CC. Guan Yu works really well with Artemis. Ganesha, Geb, Hercules works really well with Artemis in your team up. Humbats, right? Milan. What else? Noir works really well. Neith does as well. Odin works really well with Artemis. And Ymir, Yamoja. And Thor. So all those gods, right? And again, majority of the gods in the game have CC. Agni, Achilles, and Amaterasu, Aphrodite, Apollo, right? Majority of the gods in the game have CC. Tsukuyomi has CC, right? So that would be a good indicator to like, okay, maybe try out Artemis. If majority of your team has a lot of hard CC, then pick Artemis. Otherwise, if they don't have a lot of CC, for example, like a Soul doesn't really have a whole lot of CC in her kit. She has a slow, but that's it. Giannis isn't a stun, but it is a banish, but it's hard to pull off. Kali doesn't really pair up with Artemis because Kali, well, most Kali players are going with the aspect, but if she's not going aspect for the Kali, then it works pretty well with her. Loki doesn't really pair up with Artemis because Loki doesn't really have a lot of CC in his kit besides his ultimate. You kind of get the idea, right? Merlin doesn't really pair up with her really well. Parallel doesn't really work out with her well. Rod, not really. But you kind of get the idea. So always look up who your teammates are. If your teammates have a lot of CC, pick Artemis. If you have a tank that's going with Ymir, pick Artemis. If you have a tank that's going Sobek, pick Artemis. If there's an Odin in your team, pick Artemis. If there's a Mordred, pick Artemis. You kind of get the idea. Mercury, pick Artemis. Blah, 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 blah. So you see how things kind of like work together. That's why what makes you a good Smite player is to analyze, okay, who is my team? Is my team going to benefit if I play Artemis? Because if you have that knowledge beforehand, you're gonna just be a better Artemis player. Not just Artemis, but in general, right? If you have some knowledge of what every other enemy god does, or any other god in general do in the game, then that just makes you a good Smite player. These are just some tips and tricks, right, that helps me throughout the years, because I've been playing this game for, I want to say 12 years now, so I have some knowledge. But yeah, just some tips and tricks of when you want to pick Artemis, because you can pick Artemis, but there is some drawbacks, right? Like, she doesn't have a full escape, but she's really good if you paired it up with gods that have a lot of CC in their kit or crowd control in their kit. So the more crowd control, the better. Hopefully that I covered everything in this video and explained things in detail, show you guys what her kit does. So hopefully this video helps you of how to Artemis, right, and become a better Artemis player. And hopefully I get this video before her new skin comes out, because I believe that there's going to be a lot of people that want to play her because of the new skin. So hopefully this video helps you guys. But again, if there is anything I missed, if there is something that like, again, build, rise, tips and tricks, whatever, put it down in the comments below, because not only I get to read it, but the people that clicked on this video also get to read it. If you did enjoy this video, please leave a like. It helps me out a lot. And I will also make up a follow-up video of the new item that comes out for her, and I'm gonna also make a video about her new skin and continue talking about how to improve with this goddess. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye bye. Hey, future me here, and I forgot to mention this. So the rest of the video is gonna be playing out the rest of the match, and this match I went really well, so this is like one of the best ones. But yeah, I make my own music, and hopefully you guys enjoy the song that I have created for you guys, and all the background music that you've heard throughout the video was all created by me with the help of Suno Ai. But the lyrics of this next song was all written by me, so hopefully you enjoy the rest of the video, and let me know what you guys think. Alright, that being all said, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you again. Bye bye.
The moon shines so bright. She moves through shadows, silent night. A huntress fierce, with bow in hand, protector of the sacred land. Her steps are light on forest ground, her voice a whisper soft and sound, guided by the moon above, a goddess of the wild she loves. In ancient woods where secrets sleep, legends of her silent keep. Daughter of Leto's grace, she's bold, a guardian fierce, her story told. She walks unseen, yet everywhere, in every breath of forest air, a protector of maiden and beast. Her covenant has never ceased. Oh, moonlit huntress, fierce and free, guardian of the wilds, decree through darkest woods your arrows flight, guided by the pale moonlight, protector of women, strong and just. In your strength we place our trust, Artemis, eternal and true. We honor and follow you. She's the light that guides the lost, the shield for those who count no cost. Fierce in hunt, yet gentle too, the protector of the pure and true. Her